It is Tuesday, September 16th, 2025. It's about 8:30 in the morning, and we made kimchi at the restaurant yesterday. 4 boxes. Apparently, kimchi is fairly popular. I don't blame people. It tastes good. I think most of the kimchi that's commercially available is pretty bad. So much so I just don't recommend buying kimchi at the store. And there was a period of time when my wife didn't want to make kimchi anymore, and so she started buying store-bought kimchi. And that stuff would just sit on the shelf in the fridge, and it would eventually get thrown out. But her recipe's pretty good. She's been studying her whole life how to make it, obviously. And this is the scrap. This is the outer leaves of the Napa cabbage that she can't use for kimchi. So she has to throw them away. And I've been experimenting giving them to the cows. I think it's not going to hurt the cows. It's a green leafy vegetable, right? So I mixed it in with the protein supplement here. I've been feeding 50 pounds a day, and they've been eating 50 pounds a day. Their manure is starting to get a little softer, so I'm probably going to keep at it. I'm thinking also of getting a larger batch of supplement, but let's see, I have 29 bags left at the store. I bought a ton, so 29 times 50. That's about, 1,500 pounds? That's almost a ton, right? Is that right, Mr. Bull? Is my math right? Anyway, yeah, this morning I come out and the sheep had escaped. Not all of them, but about half of them. I thought it was just a few, but they were hiding in the goat weed. So I got them all back together. I was hoping the supplement would attract them. I know the sheep like to eat it too, and I'm pretty sure it's fine for the sheep to eat. But anyway, that's kind of neither here nor there. The plan is, I think I have 2 more rows left. So today is Tuesday. Normally I'd move them Tuesday morning, but because Friday evening I'm not available, I'll be at the restaurant working. I'm going to move them Saturday morning and Tuesday evening. So I just shifted everything forward half a day. And so tonight I'm going to move them to a new row. And then Saturday morning I'll move them to the last row. And I think that'll mean Tuesday evening or something like that. Maybe Monday I'll bring them down to the pen and we'll have a sheep day. And if you're in the community and you want to participate, you're more than welcome to come participate and hang out and talk with me while we work with the sheep. Reminder that Texas law says that if you're working on somebody's farm with animals and you get hurt by that animal, that the farmer bears no responsibility. So if you do decide to come watch or participate and you get hurt, that's on you. There's just no way I could cover that liability. And run a farm at the same time. So, but yeah, if you want to come by, shoot me an email, comment in this video, and I'd be happy to show you what I do. Now, what I do is not necessarily the best thing. I don't even know if it's a recommendation for your farm. I highly recommend you listen to lots of different people and follow their advice versus mine. I'm still new at this. I was a programmer in a previous life, The only reason why you might follow me is because I have sheep and they're not dead, right? So that's probably the only thing working in my favor for why to listen to me and not somebody else. But I'm not trying to tell you to listen to me. I'm just explaining to you the facts, so when you make your decision about what to do. And I do plan on selling starter flocks with livestock guardian dogs attached. I don't have dog feeders that I found are successful. My sheep are too smart for that. I just feed them by hand outside the row so the sheep don't have access to the food. You can see, like, here's the sheep in this row, and then over there is, let's see if we can, that is the dog feeder and dog water. So that's where the dogs they're waiting for their food. And I do that for a number of reasons. Number one, these dogs are young. I don't want them with the sheep all the time. If they are with the sheep, I'm going to monitor them carefully. And number two is I don't want the sheep eating the dog food. So anyway, that's kind of the thing. So next Monday, so today is the 16th, so add 6 to 20, 22nd, September 22nd, I think is going to be our, let's see, Saturday. I'll move them to the last row, and then Monday I'll bring them to the pen, and we can play with them there. What else is on my mind? I wanted to mention something. This should be obvious knowledge to people, but I think some people need to have it explained, and it's something I need to think about and being aware of, is this whole concept of like the unit cost or unit profit. So if I have 60 acres and I make, let's just say, I'll just pick a number, a random number, $30,000 a year on 60 acres, right? With the animals and everything that I'm doing. And I'm talking net profit. I'm not talking like revenue. Maybe I bring in 60,000, but I'm spending 30,000 in expenses, right? Labor and everything else. So if I'm making 30,000 a year on 60 acres, then I might be tempted to go buy, let's say 600 acres, right? So 10 times as much land. And then I'll say, well, if I have 10 times as much land, then I'm going to make $300,000 a year, right? And I'm going to be rich. Woo, right? The issue with that, and it's not just in farming, it's in every industry, it's in software too, is there's always limiting factors. There's always bottlenecks. There's always like hidden unit expenses in your fixed costs, right? So, for instance, if I run 10 times as many animals, then I'm going to need to put up more fencing, and I'm going to need to reel in more fencing every time I move them, right? Now, thankfully, because of the square cube law, which it's like common sense to me, but so the animals take up units of area, right? So they're grazing area, and the fence is the perimeter of that area. So if we double or quadruple the area, then we're basically doubling the perimeter, right? So it's kind of an exponential thing that works in our favor, right? So if I was running 10 times as many animals, I'd have to put up square root of 10 more fencing, right? And if I was running 100 times more animals, I have to put up square root of 100 more fencing, right? And so, in other words, if I wanted to run 100 times more animals, I'd have to put up 10 times as much fencing. Okay. The other thing is that not all land is created equal. And so if I go and I find a farm that has 600 acres and I purchase it, it's not going to be this times 10, right? There's going to be spots of the land that just aren't really farmable. There's going to be really poor spots of ground that are going to take maybe a decade to really recover, And so if I think that I buy my neighbor's 600 acres and I expect 10 times of what I already have, I'm going to be disappointed, because that's not the way land works. So you have to be really careful with that kind of thing too. Same thing with businesses. Like if my restaurant's doing really well, so I say, well, I'm going to sell 10 times as many meals. Let's hire 10 times as many employees and expand the square footage of the restaurant by 10. Am I going to get 10 times as many customers? The answer is probably not. There's limiting factors. Like there's only so many people in this community that would like to eat Korean food to begin with. And once I've kind of saturated that, there's basically nobody else, right? And I'm not going to be going to people who hate Korean food for whatever reason and convincing them to come to my restaurant, at least not very easily, right? And so I just can't, open up a spreadsheet and multiply by 10 and say everything's great. There's a horsefly on that. Look at that horsefly. Those things are really, there's 2 of them. There's 3 of them on that horse. Oh man, I don't like horseflies. They sometimes make a little mess. There's a dragonfly, Mr. Dragonfly. There's horseflies over there. Right there, there's 3 of them. Right there, over there. You got to go over there and get the horseflies. Come on, there you go, that direction. So maybe we'll see some dragonfly. Oh, there's another dragonfly. Oh, they're following. There's 3 of them. Good. Okay, maybe that cow's going to get saved here in a moment. So it's not always a simple matter of just multiplying numbers in your spreadsheet and, clicking the calculate button or whatever. So it doesn't quite work out that way. Right. So you have to be smart about it, Now that said, like I'm keeping my eye open. Every once in a while look at property listings. I should tell my wife, Jennifer, don't watch this part of the video. You don't want me looking at property. I know it. But I am kind of keeping my eye open. And if there is an opportunity that opens up, I might take it, But until that point happens, my activities are best spent trying to increase the fertility of this pasture. I believe, and I think there's a reasonable foundation for this belief, that with careful management, I can double the fertility of this pasture, maybe even quadruple or even 10 times. And the reason why I believe that's possible is because when people first moved into this area in the 1800s, there was grass, up past their shoulders, and their animals were just able to eat and eat and eat and eat. And I think I talked with an old timer, and he said they used to run 2 cows per acre in this area when he was young. 2 cows per acre. So if a guy had a 60-acre ranch, he would run 120 cattle, and they would not have to buy feed, and they would not have to buy hay, right? So they can feed them all year long. Now, they're probably running a different breed of cattle. I did some checking in the history books, and I think back in the early 1900s, the Hereford breed was really coming into vogue in the cattle ranchers in Texas. So Hereford was basically everywhere. And then I think it was around the mid 1900s that we started to see Angus appear. And then I think 1980s is when Angus kind of started to dominate the market. Okay. So they were probably running a different breed of cattle back then, most likely the Longhorn or what they call the Piney Woods, right, cattle. And those cattle are quite a bit different than the Hereford and the Angus. And their flavor profile and texture is extremely different, right? So, and keep in mind that beef really didn't take off in the U.S. Probably until after World War II is when I think beef was the dominant meat product that people would eat. And then leading up to then, probably for about 50 years, 1890 until 1940, beef was increasing in popularity. And I think that directly correlates with the Hereford breed being introduced and dominating the meat market. People started to realize that you can have beef that actually tastes good and doesn't require massive amounts of chewing, right, to get through. That you can be tender. So that's kind of the story there. So I believe that this ground could be much more fertile with careful management. I've seen some evidence on this farm that the fertility has increased. So until I see an opportunity that makes a lot of sense, I'm not going to jump ship. I'm going to put all my eggs into the basket, so to speak, here, and work to see that this ground fertility increases, right? And that's kind of what the rule of thumb has to be, no matter where you're at, even in a business. You work with what you have. You can dream about what you don't have or what you'd like to have. You can meet with a banker and talk about how much money you can get for a loan, and you can look at the market. But every day you wake up and say, how can I make what I have better? Right? How can I improve the productivity, the fertility, right? And so in the case of this farm, how do I make it better? Animals need to be more relaxed and more comfortable. There needs to be more and better grass available for the animals. I need to convert each drop of rain into more grass by trapping every drop of rain and keeping the moisture in the soil for as long as possible. And I need to, when I do provide supplements, it needs to be highly optimized and targeted, and not just like a shotgun approach of hoping for the best. You know what I mean? So I don't provide supplements unless it's absolutely necessary. And I only get as much as I need, okay? And then on the other side, making the ground as fertile as possible and focusing on growing more grass and better types of grasses. I had a lady ask me, she says, can I have some of your manure for my garden? I said, well, you're free to come to my pasture, and if you really want to bring a shovel and a bucket, you can, but I'm going to tell you there's not a lot of manure for you to collect, because once the manure patty drops, it's almost instantly converted by the dung beetles, and within a few days it's soil, right? So you're just picking up soil, if you can even identify the patties, right? And I also told her, I says, I'm using the fertilizer to grow my pasture fertility, so by you coming and taking the patties, it's kind of hurting me, but it's not a big deal. If you're just going to take like 5 or 10 of them, it's not going to make a difference. But you're going to have to be out here traipsing in the brush, trying to hunt down patties, and you'll be competing with dung beetles. You know what I mean? So I said, you're probably better off finding somebody who actually has a stall, or they have horses and they keep them in a stall, because they probably have piles of dung that they keep sweeping out of the stall. But I don't have a stall. I don't have a barn. I don't put the animals indoors at any time of the year. That's not my operation, So anyway, guys, that was a long-winded conversation. I don't really have much time to stand around and chat anymore. But I finished today's chores kind of early, so I'm gonna skedaddle. And if you want to talk, you can find me at the restaurant. I'd love to talk about farming. Our restaurant's at 200 Hillcrest Drive South in Sulphur Springs, and we're open from 10:30 to 3 on Tuesday and Wednesday, and then 10:30 to 8 p.m. on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We're open until 8 o'clock, and we're closed Sunday and Monday, right? If you want to talk to me on Sunday, you have to find me at church. So, all right, guys, you have a great day. Take care and bye-bye.